DBJ. We're going to talk about interim characters, breaks in the plot, how to insert and remove characters during your game. Now, as any person who's ever played role-playing games, one of the toughest things to deal with is having players leave the game and new players come into the game, knowing full well that the players that have to leave temporarily are coming back, or having new players come in, but you know they're only going to be there for a short time and they're going to leave. And how do you keep the progression going, and how do you keep the motivation and the storyline flowing in a forward order without having to go back, change things, and make these strange, somewhat nonsensical reasons for people being gone. Now, it's easy if your game system takes place, say, near a town or a popular area, but it can be real difficult if you're going on a long dungeon crawl, they're on a deserted island, they're, weeks away, and you have to make a break. How do you insert characters to take them out? I've got about 8 in mind. There's no easy way to do this, but I'll just give you my particular opinions. My first one is just called the chapter break. And an experienced DM, you're going to end up realizing that this is a very important skill, is breaking your chapters into chunks. And especially with limited time and availability of people, you'll learn your pacing and kind of look at your watch to realize, where can I break my story? Where can I break my plot to allow a character sufficient and reasonable reason why they're leaving, and to have someone else come in? You would hate to do this. Let's say you blocked out 4 hours to play. One of your players is going, hey, listen, I'm going to be gone for a week or a couple weeks. I'm going to have to bow out of the game. Can you just come up with a way to remove me? And you would hate to go an hour and a half into the game, make a break, their character leaves, they're still stuck at the gaming table, but for nothing to do because their character left, and you got another 2.5 hours with your other players. Sometimes you can't help that, but you may have to do that. But really, experienced GMs will end the story on a note. Let's say they end at a city where there's a dock, and that player could get on a boat. The game ends with them arriving in the town with the spoils of war. The game, that game session ends on a road, and if they take the left fork, it leads to, greater fortune. If they take the right, they can follow this path home or something like that. Just basically finding a chapter break. That's my first one. Find a chapter break. Find a really good place to break the rhythm of the game. Maybe there's a place where characters level up, where they can get more supplies or something like that, and there's a reason why that person leaves. The second one would be a personal commitment. So, for example, you have a player character that's in the game, they have to leave, so that you work with that player, and during that game, their last game, they state that they have a personal commitment to attend to. They're a paladin. They must go back to the church and atone for what they've done on the road. They're a cleric. They want to go back to their church and return their spoils of war because of a personal holiday or something. Your rogue has to appear before the leader of a thieves guild. Something like that. The character has a personal commitment. You may have to shoehorn it a little bit, but there's a reason why, they're devoted to the player characters and other characters in the party. Hey, I'll be back, but I've got a personal commitment. I've got to leave. It could be a personal commitment of a, hey, kitty. It could be a personal commitment of a relationship, or some kind of, let's say there's a brother or sister, mom, dad, cousins, a familial relationship they have with someone, and they've committed themselves to being there for some reason. Or they've seen someone on the road that reminds them of someone and realize they haven't been home in years, and so they make this personal commitment to go back home. It could be a political one as well. Political connection, a favor they have to do with someone, do for someone to protect their, the character realizes that someone they know is going to make their 18th birthday. They're going to become the heir to a throne. They promise to be there, so they leave. And that can create a new story. Third one could be party connections. And the party connections, what I mean by this one is, if a player has to bow out of the game, they may have a connection with one of the characters that forces them to leave, that helps the party out. And an example would be, let's say some robber barons have put a bounty out on the player characters. And the person playing the rogue has to leave the game. And so what they do is they leave the game because they know that the other members of the party, maybe they're a good party, the rogue's friends with the paladin, and knows the paladin wouldn't agree with this. The rogue says, well, listen, I've got to leave for a few weeks, but I'll meet you guys at Shadow's Pass, and leaves to basically go murder the robber baron. I'm going to assassinate that dude because he's got a bounty out on our heads, and there's no way the other party members would agree with my actions. It's kind of a way to split the party, but you, instead of splitting the party in game, you're splitting it so that the one or more members of the party have to leave, and they're no longer part of the game. Fourth one could be an important insertion. And an important insertion would be that one party member leaves, but you have to include someone else into the game. Because I'm going to get to this part where you have a person that wants to play in a game, you have an ongoing campaign, and they have to come into the game. So you have an important insertion. And an important insertion would mean that they have some kind of information, or they're important to the plot to get the plot moving again. And so although they may not be familiar with the characters, they have something to move it. For example, they have a map that leads to the next campaign. And so therefore, we need that character to move that plot forward. There was an old 90s Hong Kong action thing where there were a bunch of kids and someone tattooed a piece of a map that led to a treasure on the backs of all these kids. And you needed all the kids alive and together to read the map. And no one child knew where it was, and of course they couldn't see their back, so they couldn't read it. And so a character may have something very important, a key. Maybe they are part of a bloodline that's very important. Somehow they are important to motivating the characters forward, even if there's some animosity in the beginning by inserting this new person into an already established party. Again, number 7, I guess, would be parallel motivations, or probably number 6, whatever. Parallel motivations. Parallel motivations would be the player characters come into town, one of their party members has to leave, and another party member comes in and goes, hey, listen, you know, you're going after the same people we want to go after. I hate them just as much as you do, so we're going to get together. We're going to ransack the orcish hordes or whatever. Parallel motivation. The player characters know of a magic sword that's in a wizard's tower. We're going to go find it. We have to uncover the wizard's tower. The new player comes in and goes, hey, I've heard tales of the same thing, but I've been afraid to go by myself. I'm glad somebody else believes in the same omens that I do. Hey, let's go get that sword out of the wizard's tower. The last 2 are my favorite for inserting new people and having old characters leave. And the last 2 would be mysterious disappearance and doppelganger. Now, the mysterious disappearance one, that is a catch-all phrase for having one of your player characters leave. It could be that they snuck off and no one knows where they went. It could be that they are, some magic took them away. Yes, it's a catch-all phrase, and yeah, it can be kind of silly to have, well, the paladin leaves, you don't know where he went, and then all the player characters are going, well, I guess we don't know, so we're just going to have to keep going on. It is a little shoehorny, but the mysterious disappearance can also mean something like let's say one of the characters gets snatched by a big flying creature and taken off to the wizard's tower in the mountain. So now the player characters go after them and figure out what's going on. Or the rogue sees the paladin talking in hushed tones with someone and rides off with someone who looks like a evil and seedy kind of group or something, like the robber barons, and wonders, okay, why would a paladin willingly go with these guys? I don't even like these guys, and I'm the rogue. Like, why would the paladin go off? And so that mysterious disappearance could be a motivation to get the characters to move the plot forward. The player character, the paladin, is going to be gone for quite a few sessions, so we don't know where they're at. And someone else, maybe one of the robber barons, seedier types, to say, hey, I'm going to join your group. I want to know what the hell's going on as well. Okay. The last one I like, especially with players that are either bored with their characters, know that they will not be returning, or you want to add an extra element, is the doppelganger. Now, yes, there's a creature called a doppelganger, but there's other creatures that can replace one of your party members without them knowing it. And the intellect devourer, there's a couple mind control creatures like the Rakshasa and the mind flayers. There's plenty of the succubus and incubus, where they can control the characters, take over their bodies, using illusions and shape-shifting. And I love using that, especially with a player that, like I said, they're bored with the character, or something traumatic has happened to the character and they're pretty much on their last leg. And this may be a great way to insert a new player by having the new player play the old player's character with permission, and the players just assume they're the same person, but they're not. And it's kind of like a foreshadowing, like, well, wait a minute, Joe's paladin's being played by Jill. What's going on? Oh, he's letting me play the character. Game master already knows. Something goes on. You realize that this person they start turning on the group, giving out false information. Everyone turns on the paladin, realize that they've been substituted by a doppelganger. So now the players are like, wait a minute, okay, the temporary character is the doppelganger. So the temporary person that joined the group, Jill, who joins the group, is temporary, so she leaves. The paladin gets killed as a doppelganger, and now you're like, okay, well, what happened to the real guy? We've got to go find him. When was the last time we saw him? Okay. This kind of goes back to one of my things where how do you handle splitting a party? It actually can be kind of fun to have one of the party members play an NPC monster, and the party members just don't know this. You have to substitute someone in for 3 games. The person gets substituted in. You say, hey, what do you want to play? A wizard, a warlock, a fighter, and then you go, wait a minute, why don't you play an intellect devourer that's inside of one of the NPCs? Oh, okay. And then in the game master's like, well, one of the guardsmen in the town that you guys have met before wants to join the party, and here's the character. Write up a character sheet, everything, but actually the character has already been infected by an intellect devourer and joins the group. Player character runs along with the group like nothing's changed, but mysteriously things start happening. Personally, that's my favorite. That's one of my favorites. But like I said, you have anything like the mysterious disappearances and the personal commitments with characters, it's difficult, especially if you've got a really great game where they go to like another plane of existence, or they go to another island. How the hell do you insert someone in? Dungeon Crawl Classics games, because those modules admittedly are meat grinders, they specifically have like hostages and people in jail where player characters can release them to fill their ranks up with pretty much more victims. But yes, another player could be held hostage in a group, unconscious on the side of the road after just getting robbed. They could be an agent sent by a patron of the player characters. The church just wants to make sure you're on the right path, so we've sent someone to monitor you. could be another individual hoping that the rogue who's supposed to go into the wizard's castle to find the sword, supposed to give the gold back to the Thieves Guild. The head of the Thieves Guild doesn't trust the rogue, and so sends an agent to ensure that they give the money back, anything like that. Inserting characters in. Now, of course, this requires great communication between your players and the game master or dungeon master, so you got to communicate. How do you want a temporary character to be inserted, and how are they supposed to leave? And the main character who has to leave for a while, just communicate with them about what instructions you want done with your character. Many people don't want other people playing their character, especially if they're going to die or they get poisoned or something or get their arm chopped off. You don't want to be absent when those kind of things happen. So anyway, these are some of my ideas on how to handle that. But to be honest with you, there really isn't a very good way of doing it. So I hope this video helped. And as always, I try to create things to help out. It's much better than trying to destroy someone's character creation. So thank you very much.